South Korea's military has confirmed that North Korea has indeed conducted its 6th nuclear test. For more on the details, we connect live to our defense correspondent B0MB, who is standing by at Seoul's defense ministry. B0MB, so our assumptions were correct.
That's right, Minji. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said a little over an hour ago that the seismic activity detected earlier today was from Pyongyang's 6th nuclear test. Now, tremor magnitude 5.7 was detected in Punggye at 12:29 p.m. The JCS sent a strong warning to Pyongyang for its recent provocation less than 30 minutes ago. So let's hear what they had to say.
North Korea has rejected our peaceful offer to ease military tensions and instead launched an ICBM and conducted a more powerful nuclear bomb test. We strongly condemn North Korea's provocations.
The JCS added that the nuclear test is a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions and to the peace and stability of the world. The military warned that North Korea will be held responsible for its provocative acts and stressed that Seoul and Washington is ready to counter any threats from the north. The South Korean military says the magnitude is the largest of any test so far. Now, shortly after the test, Pyongyang claimed that it had tested a miniaturized hydrogen bomb that can be loaded onto an intercontinental ballistic missile. Seoul and Washington are currently analyzing the man-made earthquake and looking for signs of any unusual activity north of the border. South Korea's meteorological agency said Sunday that the artificial quake was up to 6 times more powerful than the regime's 5th nuclear test and 11 times than the 4th. Experts say if North Korea perfects its ability to miniaturize such weapons, then the regime will be capable of mounting them on not only an ICBM, but on an intermediate and short-range ballistic missiles, which would be a grave threat to the region. Now, since 2006, North Korea has now conducted 6 nuclear tests, including 2 last year. Now, that's all for now, but we'll bring more updates as this story develops. Back to you.
Fox News alert on North Korea. The regime now claiming it's developed a hydrogen bomb.
North Korea's nuclear test was met with condemnation coming from South Korea, China, and Japan. China condemned North Korea's nuclear test hours after signs were detected, while Japan responded in around half an hour and quickly held an emergency meeting. Our foreign affairs correspondent Connie Kim has more.
South Korea has strongly condemned North Korea's nuclear test conducted at its Punggye nuclear test site. Calling the test irresponsible and unacceptable, Seoul said the ball is now in North Korea's court, whether to face diplomatic and economic isolation or secure security and economic development through denuclearization. China may be one of the countries most outraged by Pyongyang's 6th and most powerful nuclear test on Sunday, as Beijing has been one of the few calling for dialogue as preferable to tougher sanctions. Beijing expressed a strong condemnation of North Korea's nuclear test and called on Pyongyang to stop provocative acts that worsen the situation on the Korean peninsula. The timing of Sunday's test was a major embarrassment for Chinese President Xi Jinping as he was hosting the BRICS summit meeting as Pyongyang had ruined China's big celebration it had long prepared for. But nevertheless, at the BRICS summit's opening ceremony, Chinese President Xi called for the pursuit of common interests in the region while recognizing differences and stressed his opposition to trying to solve problems unilaterally, hinting Beijing will continue to call for a peaceful resolution to the tensions. Japan, within striking distance of North Korea, was one of the quickest to respond. Around half an hour later, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, speaking to reporters outside his residence, said there is a great possibility that the regime has conducted a nuclear test and that it'll be unacceptable if this turns out to be true. Abe called for emergency meetings of Japan's National Security Councils, and its Foreign Minister Taro Kono requested an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council after the test was confirmed. Trump and Abe, in a phone conversation hours before Pyongyang's nuclear test, had reaffirmed trilateral cooperation among Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo, so it's most likely Beijing could be pressured to stronger sanctions it had refrained from by possibly cutting off oil supplies to Pyongyang. Connie Kim, News.
Now, the agency claims
During a visit to the country's nuclear weapons institute, Kim Jong-un watched as a hydrogen bomb was loaded onto a new intercontinental ballistic missile. This is the picture that was provided again by state news.
North Korea says it has successfully carried out a hydrogen bomb test. North Korea made the announcement about half an hour ago on a state-run TV broadcaster.
We have successfully tested a hydrogen bomb that can be loaded into a new intercontinental ballistic missile.
The announcement came about 3 hours after the 5.7 magnitude artificial quake was detected near the North's Punggye test site. This is apparently the North's 6th nuclear test and comes about a year since its 5th nuclear test in September last year.
Hydrogen weapons are pretty powerful. They're an order of magnitude greater than the weapons the Americans used against the Japanese in 1945.
We didn't know what we did, really. Didn't sink in. And we brought in the atomic agent about 5-10 years later.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT.
I kind of wonder when the Chinese are going to be unnerved by the idea of North Korea having this much nuclear force. I also think the South Koreans and the Japanese are going to have to respond more creatively. I think all of these tests and now the hydrogen bomb, that can put a hydrogen bomb in a missile, all this is going to really push the missile defense debate in South Korea and Japan. I think it might also push the nuclearization debate, right? That is to say that if Donald Trump, particularly if Donald Trump is retrenching from East Asia, because now he's talking about, for example, closing the U.S.-South Korea free trade deal. So if Donald Trump is thinking about retrenching from Asia and the North Koreans are detonating hydrogen bombs, the Japanese and South Koreans will go nuclear in response.
North Korean nuclear warheads an apparent reality. The U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency says it reached a conclusion last month that North Korea has successfully built a miniaturized nuclear warhead it could fit inside its missiles. Other experts have said in recent months that such an advancement by Pyongyang was probably years away as the Kim Jong-un regime pursues to become the world's 9th full-fledged nuclear power. The Washington Post newspaper quotes the defense agency's assessment that North Korea has produced nuclear weapons for ballistic missile delivery, to include delivery by intercontinental ballistic missiles. North Korea has said in recent days that the ICBM it tested in a launch last month was capable of hitting the United States mainland, an advance it had not previously claimed. It is not known whether North Korea has tested a smaller nuclear warhead, although it said last year it had.
Closer cooperation between Britain and Japan over the issue of North Korea. Prime ministers of the two allies have reaffirmed their commitment to stopping the North's aggression and pressed China to do more to control the regime.
Through our deepening security partnership, we must work together to enhance our collective response to the threats to the international order and global peace and security. And that must include confronting the threat that North Korea poses and ensuring that this regime in North Korea stops its aggressive acts.
North Korea's reckless action of sending another missile over the skies of Japan is a threat. Japan and Britain will cooperate to counter this.
Both countries have robust ballistic missile capabilities and the ability to perform this mission. However, there is a tremendous amount of value in us being able to move those parts and pieces around, deploy and redeploy our forces and their forces to be ready to respond to any contingency. It adds flexibility to the alliance, the U.S.-Japanese alliance, and the ability for us to work together in meeting our joint mission, providing security to both of our countries and the region.
State media declared North Korea as a proud nuclear state with an ICBM rocket that can now target anywhere in the world. Media reports referencing the Defense Intelligence Agency report say it is believed Pyongyang has now amassed 60 nuclear weapons, although some experts think the number is smaller, perhaps half that. The DIA's reported conclusion comes as the United Nations Security Council unanimously imposed new sanctions on Pyongyang in an effort to cut $1 billion of its $3 billion in annual export income.
One of the consistent themes we've been hearing from security officials, intelligence officials, since President Trump came on board is the concern they have about North Korea and about how rapidly it's advanced its capabilities. This past May, during the annual Worldwide Threats Assessment hearing that Congress has, the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, spoke, and he spoke about a photograph that they had, Kim Jong-un photographed beside a nuclear warhead, and the way it was set up, it looked as though they had, at that point, a nuclear warhead that could fit into a missile, i.e. they've miniaturized the nuclear warhead for an ICBM. This is something that military officials, Pentagon officials, have been worried about for quite a long time. As far back as 2014, the commander of U.S. forces in Korea had warned that the assessment was North Korea had the capability to do this, although it had been several years before they had seen them try to do that or test out the capability. Obviously, of late, they've been ramping up the testing. The curve has advanced in terms of what they've been able to do, and so there's significant concern about what this means because North Korea does like to shake things up on the Korean Peninsula and in East Asia.